Welcome to Policy Matters with the League of Women Voters of the Fort Wayne area. I'm Nancy McCammon Hansen. I am the convener of the League of Women Voters. And before we get started with today's guests, I'd like to, first of all, thank the Allen County Public Library and the staff at WELT Radio. They have been so wonderful to us over the last year in helping us put together these shows, giving us copies to post on our website, which is www.lwvfw.org. or League of Women Voters FortWayne.org. So you can go to our website, you can listen to past shows and get caught up on a few things. One of those things is redistricting, which will be rearing its ugly head again after the election. We also have a Facebook page, League of Women Voters of the Fort Wayne area, where we post links to various news articles that are applicable to things that the voter needs to know, to elections, voter registration, redistricting, voter education. So those are some other resources for you. And we have been trying to feature different people in this area who have a cause that they're supporting, or they have information that's useful to voters. So there's a wide variety of things that you can listen to with our broadcasts. So we encourage you to also, if you have an idea for a show for us, to send us an email via our website. Once again, it's www.lwvfw.org, and we will give it some consideration. So let's get started. Today, I am visiting with Robin Pakangi, correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay. Great last name. I love that.
Thank you.
And Robin actually works for the National Church Residencies.
Correct.
But she is here today to talk to us about TRIAD. And this is an organization in town. Robin, explain to us what TRIAD is.
Okay. The purpose of TRIAD is it is national, but each county has their own. And the purpose is to promote older adult safety and reduce fear of crime that older adults may experience.
Okay. And is it strictly crime, or can it be incidents that are
Yes.
unsettling, I guess?
Unsettling scams. We like to make them familiar with, if, for instance, uniforms of utility workers. That way, if there's people around their neighborhood that they're not sure about, they are familiar with those things. We want them to be safe and still live in the community.
Okay. Now, a question for you. When you say elderly, because you were talking about your mother the other day, and I realized that she and I are just about the same age. What do you consider elderly?
Well, every year that I get older, that goes up.
That's
so
right.
I would say retirement age. So 60 and up.
Okay. That makes me feel better. We used to have a friend, I still do have a friend that would always celebrate the anniversary of his 29th birthday because it makes people do math and helps the education of our nation. Okay, so TRIAD was started in Allen County when?
1995.
1995. And as I understand it, it's a partnership, actually. It's not just one organization. So who are the partners?
So the three partners are communities that work with adults, law enforcement, and then senior volunteers.
Okay. So, for example, aging and in-home services is a big part of TRIAD.
Yes, we are on their website.
Okay. And the Sheriff's Department?
Yes.
The Fort Wayne Allen County Department of Health?
Yes, there is a representative that does attend the meetings, yes.
And Fort Wayne Fire Department, Fort Wayne Police Department, Indiana State Police, New Haven Police Department, and do you pronounce it TRA?
TRA.
TRA Ambulance Services. So that's a lot of different organizations which can interact with a lot of different populations, correct?
Yes.
Okay. When you say senior volunteers, what do you mean?
Well, we do have a representative from RSVP. I don't know if you're familiar with that group.
Retired Senior Volunteer Program. Okay.
Although most of the people there aren't really seniors. They'll take any type of volunteer. But also just if someone is a retiree and likes to stay active in the community, anybody can be a volunteer.
Okay. So there you go. If you want to be a volunteer, call Aging and In-Home Services?
Yes. We meet at 8:30 at Aging and In-Home the second Thursday of every month.
Okay. And Aging and In-Home Services is over on Lake Street, just a little ways east of the Catholic Cemetery.
Correct.
And Near Hope for Animals, one of my favorite organizations.
Yeah, right across the street.
Yeah, give them a plug.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have a program coming up that has to deal with the disposal of unwanted medication.
Yes.
Can you tell us what that's about?
Sure. The purpose originally was to keep it out of the water systems. Since then, because of the opioid epidemic, we would like to also keep them out of the hands of people that they are not prescribed for. But a lot of people, used to dump them down the toilet or down the sink, and we don't want that. So we have started where we work with Walgreens. There's 15 different area Walgreens that partner with us. And the fourth Friday of September and April from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m., you can bring your unwanted medications. We will collect them, and then we will properly dispose of them.
Okay, so this is prescription medication.
Yes.
What if you have a big bottle of Advil that...
If you bring it, we're going to take it.
Okay.
But really, those types of things, you can just dump them in the trash.
Really?
Mm-hmm. If they're, you should put them in like cat litter or old coffee grounds or something like that. But yes.
Okay. Now, I know at one time, and this might have been years and years ago, entities took in prescription medication. Say, for example, someone dies and they have a lot of leftover prescription medication, and that medication in turn was given to people who don't have the money to buy medication.
Yes.
But that is no longer?
From what we've tried, we would love to donate it, but unfortunately, they can be liable. So if for some reason that bottle was contaminated maybe with another medication by accident, or if something is wrong with that medication and it is given to someone, they would be liable. So we have not found many organizations that will take those things.
Okay. Now, you are also partnering not only with Walgreens, but with Lutheran Hospital.
Yes. Lutheran Hospital came on probably about 3 years ago. Their site is right in front of the Walgreens there in Lutheran Hospital.
Okay.
And then just this past April, Parkview came on.
Okay. And both Parkviews or just Parkview North?
Just Parkview North. It was actually at the Miro Center, but it is going to be from here on out there in the main entrance at Parkview North.
Okay. Okay, so pills, capsules, over-the-counter pills, anything that is liquid. And I guess I thought this was interesting because you mentioned cat litter, and I'm a cat person. So if I have bottles of cough syrup that is technically expired, and I am always hesitant to take an expired medication, I shouldn't just throw it away in the bottle. I should pour it over some cat litter or something like that and then get rid of it.
Yes.
Okay. Do people really go through garbage and look for medication?
Cough medicine, yes, probably, because they have codeine in it and different things. So, yeah, cough medicines for sure. You know, other things like eye drops and creams, maybe not so much, but you just never know. People have, I don't know who comes up with the idea, let's try to mix this and this and see if, if we can get an effect from it, but they do that.
And that's kind of scary.
Yes.
Okay, so now I know that some of you listening probably have elderly parents, and if you're a boomer, you probably have elderly parents. If, for example, you were cleaning out your parents' house after both of them had died, and you collect the medication in September and April, and let's say it's January. What do you do with it? Do you hang on to it, or?
No, we do have ongoing sites. I know Walgreens has 3. It's their 24-hour locations, and they look like old-fashioned mailboxes, and they're backed by the pharmacy that you can take those to. Also, the State Police Department has an ongoing site that looks just like that. You can pull up and drop your medications in there, and from my understanding, all of those places have to empty those mailboxes out quite often.
Okay. Do you know what they do with it once they...
Yeah, it is incinerated. Recently, we've had different companies that did this for us, but most recently we've teamed up with the DEA. They also do a medication disposal, and so they kind of take all of our things, and there's a place in Indianapolis that will incinerate them for us.
Oh, my gosh. What a place to work.
I know.
Yeah. Kind of scary.
Yes.
One of the things that we had talked about earlier when we were talking about doing this show was the disposal of, and I put this in our email, sharps, in quotations. Would you define a sharp for me?
Really, it's anything that has a sharp point, but usually it is diabetic needles, syringes, those types of things.
Okay. And those I assume if you're a diabetic who's on insulin and you have to take insulin via a shot like every day or whatever, that there is a place, or that are you given something to dispose of those needles
No,
in?
you have to purchase them. So
Okay.
they are called a Sharps container, and they come in different sizes. And when you purchase them, and once they're full, you can actually ship them to where they're supposed to go, and they'll get properly disposed of.
Okay. And then you also have an idea about if you don't have the container, if it's too expensive or whatever, what do you do with the Sharps?
You can take a laundry detergent container, and when it is full, put the lid back on and duct tape it very, very good, and then you can put it in your trash.
Okay. Do Sharps disintegrate in the landfills?
No. So it would be better to use the Sharps containers to do that.
Okay.
And to be honest, from my understanding, those can break open in the landfill as well, and that has been an issue. Luckily, those people wear steel-toed boots, but
yeah.
I have been told that they can be poking out of them. So that can be an issue. So it is best to use the Sharps containers if possible.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. I guess when you're looking at medication, and particularly with the elderly, as you know, you're dealing with elderly parents, are there any other considerations when it comes to their medication that you need to be aware of, say, as a child or a caregiver, other than disposal? And I'm thinking, products of the depression, where we're going to hang on to this just in case. Doctor might represcribe it or whatever.
Yes.
Any thoughts about how to
Yes.
handle?
I can tell you that, depending on how long you hold on to it, that as we age, our bodies metabolize medicines differently. So the way you took a medicine when you were younger will not necessarily be the same way when you're older. So, obviously, we would not ever recommend taking something that's expired, but there are those people out there that think, oh, there's probably nothing wrong with that. Your body certainly changes as you get older, and that is something to keep in mind.
Okay, well, that's good to know, and I have to make a phone call to my mother about that because her new doctor cut back her medications, and she was concerned, but I understand if she'd been on them for 2 or 3 years, and she's now 92, 88 and 92 are different ages.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. That is good to know. Now, TRIAD also does some other types of activities in this area.
Yes.
One of those is safety presentations. What kinds of safety topics do the speakers get into?
Well, it is all about our programs. Our goal is
Okay.
always about signing people up for them. As we're going to, I think, go into, we do have some other programs that are free that we would love as many people as possible to sign up for.
Okay. So if, for example, I'm part of a church or I'm part of a community group, I could call
Yes.
and ask to have a speaker come.
Yes, you can call Agent and In-Home 745-1200 and ask them for information on having a speaker. We speak to support groups. I've spoken to Alzheimer's groups, Parkinson's groups, any type of senior group, senior circle, just about anything you can think of. And we're happy to come there. If people want to sign up for these programs right then and there, we'll be happy to do that as well.
Okay. Now, I have to ask you a question. This is kind of a little off track. You volunteer for TRIAD.
Yes.
With TRIAD, right? Okay. How many volunteers does TRIAD have?
Oh, my goodness. I would say, just looking at the email reminders for the meetings and so forth, there's probably 40 or 50 people on that.
Oh, wow. That many. I did not realize that.
Now, there is more of a limited few. I would say there's probably 4 of us that are able to go out to do speaking engagements.
Okay. How did you come about doing this?
Okay. Well, I've sold senior health care for 10 years. Then I worked for a home health company for 5 years. And during my time there is when I heard about this group. And I took over for another person in our agency that used to attend. And of course, I just have a passion for seniors. And so I've just kind of been with it ever since. That's probably been since 2009.
Okay. So there's another career opportunity for people. I think working with senior citizens is interesting. I find older people, and now that I'm close to being one of them, although that gets upped every time I have a birthday, their view of life is really good.
Yep.
For the most part. And there is wisdom that comes with age.
Oh, definitely. There's never a dull moment, I can tell you that.
Okay, so safety presentations, if you want more information about the programs that TRIAD does, that's the way to get the information for a group of people. And what's the phone number again?
745-1200.
745-1200, okay. Now, one of those programs is called Safe at Home.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is really kind of intriguing. Explain what Safe at Home is.
Okay. So what had happened in the past was you might have an elderly neighbor and you might notice that their newspapers have stacked up for a couple of days, and so you've become concerned. So you might call the police and say, hey, can you do a wellness check on my neighbor? They go there and they get no answer, so they knock in the door, only to find out that that person took a vacation for a couple of weeks, and now the home is left unsecure. So Safe at Home will have information if they sign up for this program. If that neighbor would have contacted the police, this person's information would have been in there. They can list up to 4 different people that either have keys to the house or would know where these people are in the event that someone is looking for them to prevent something like this from happening.
And I will tell you from personal experience, my aunt, when she was still alive and we were all living in Nebraska, called me one day and said, I've been trying to reach your parents for the last 4 days and they don't answer their phone, which I thought was rather unusual for my parents. So I went to their house to see what was going on. The car was not in the garage. One of the main vehicle was not in the garage. So I kept calling and finally got hold of them on Sunday afternoon. They had been at a Veterans of Foreign Wars convention. And I had called my 2 sisters to see if they knew where they were. Mm-hmm. They didn't know where they were. And I said, what if something had happened to you? How would we have known where you were? It had never occurred to them that you should let somebody know when you're leaving town.
Yes.
And I think that applies to any age group.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when we leave town, we text a couple of people and call a couple of people and let them know and let the neighbors know that
Mm-hmm.
if you see anything weird at our house, we're out of town and where we are. And my father one day said, so if you thought we were in the house and something had happened to us, what would you do? And I said, I'd call the fire department and have them bring a battering ram up and knock your front door down. And I got a key to the house then.
Because that's one way to get one.
Nobody else had keys to their house either.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was looking over this information today, it occurred to me, we have 4 different people that we know that have keys to our house. Mm-hmm. Those 4 people wouldn't have a clue as to who the other 3 were. They might have a clue as to one, but you really need to let people know, particularly if you don't have immediate family in an area that you connect with. Yes,
which is so common.
And it's very common in this day and age. So there's something to think about. One of the things that is in the brochure about the Safe at Home program is that it's also good for people who do not speak well.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the questions I had is that if say I call 911 and I can't talk, can 911 find me via knowing what phone number came from?
I don't know the answer to that. I know they can if you have a cell phone because they can use the GPS. Okay. But if it's a landline, I would think so, but I actually don't know the answer to that.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So really, if you're going to call 911, use a cell phone if you've got one. Okay, that's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that TRIAD deals basically with seniors, but if you have, like in the case of my husband and me, where we have no family here, or someone who has a child with developmental disabilities, would it make sense to sign them up also for Safe at Home?
Yes. And the next program that we're going to talk about, we did open up to any at-risk individual. You know, it doesn't hurt that if this is something that could help somebody else, yes, it certainly does not have to be just seniors.
Okay. And I'm going to go through some of the questions in this brochure because these are things that people really need to think about that we take for granted. Name, date of birth, address, da-da-da-da. Do you have a keyless entry system? Which I thought was interesting because we have one in our garage which no longer works. But that would be something. And you asked for the entry code.
Yes.
which is not going to get shared.
Correct. The system is actually called Spillman, and it is what the police use and first responders and dispatchers. So all of these people that have access to this, either work in law enforcement or have been background checked and vetted. So, yeah, your information is safe.
Okay. It asks you who your family physician is and their telephone number, which is always good to have handy. Probably should be in your wallet also. Major medical or physical disabilities, that makes sense. Special medical needs. Do you need oxygen? Which is good question. Blind or sight impaired, deaf or hearing impaired, confined to a wheelchair. Are you confined to a bed, or do you need help with transferring? And here's a great question, because this is something we all need to think about. Where will you go if you need to leave home in an emergency? I have no idea. I would say a hotel.
And that's, yes. Actually, someone just gave me that answer for the first time last week.
Or a hospital. And quite honestly, that's something to think about, because with we're in a area where we have tornadoes. Our neighborhood was without power several summers ago for almost a week.
Oh.
Several people ended up going to a hotel because they couldn't take it any longer. But that's something to think about.
Yes, because this program, it wasn't meant for this, but it has been used in the event of a weather emergency. We have been able to look up zip codes to see if they were either in an area that was flooded or had been hit by a heavy storm, to make sure that those at-risk individuals are safe.
Okay, and I forgot about flooding. We live on a portage spot, but yeah, flooding in this area is something to be concerned with. Do you have pets? And this is something I know that is being promoted more by entities that deal with animals, is that, like, for example, our vet has a little thing you can put on your front door to say how many dogs, how many cats, how many whatever you have in the house, so that if there's a fire or something, emergency personnel can look to the best of their ability and safety to find your animals. Power of attorney telephone number, that's kind of interesting, and that's another plug for if you don't have a will, you really ought to get one, or at least put a few things down, but also to let people know some of this information.
Yes.
And I think that's something that we should reinforce all the time with just about everybody, because we're all interdependent, and if there is a catastrophe, and I think the people who lived through Katrina could tell you that people, you got to have somebody that knows who you are and where you are.
Yeah, you need to be prepared for sure.
You need to be prepared. Yeah. Okay. The other program, or one other program that I wanted to talk to you about a little bit, is the SafeNet program. Would you explain that, please?
Sure. So this is similar, but this is for people who still are out in the community quite a bit, whether it is shopping or just running errands. If you have an event where you are passed out, for instance, and you cannot speak to the first responders, we do offer a free bracelet. If you did not take the free bracelet, as long as they can get your name, then again, they will know what your main diagnoses are, if you have any allergies, who to contact. That way they can treat you as quickly as possible. If you happen to be someone that has a cognitive impairment and maybe you're just lost, this will help get you back to where you need to be safely as quickly as possible.
Okay, and I would say that in a city like Fort Wayne, I know before my father died of dementia, my mother left the living room one day, and he walked out of the house, and she didn't know where he was, couldn't find him. And fortunately, somebody found him who knew who he was and where he lived, because he had fallen. And scared her, and rightly so. But I would guess if you have a child with developmental disabilities living at home, or an adult child,
or even a very curious child that likes to go wander and look at things.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, that's kind of scary, isn't it? So, do you have to have the bracelet?
No, you don't. That's an optional thing. We do pay for that. Even it could be for the member, the person that signs up, as well as their caregiver. If something happens to them and they're a sole caregiver of someone with dementia, someone should know that if something happens to them.
Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
The bracelet that we use, it does have 3 lines. So on the front, you can have your name, and then on the inside is where it can have allergies and that type of information, or a diagnosis.
Okay. And I know in the information, there's a brochure that you can send your information to, again, Aging and In-Home Services at 2927 Lake Avenue. Then you receive confirmation and a coupon to get the free bracelet. Right?
Actually, what happens is someone from Agent and Home contacts me. I happen to be the marketing chairperson, and I will contact them to make an appointment to go out to their home, or they can come to me and I will sign them up. For this particular program, we also take their picture, so the first responders will have a picture ID of them, as well as very similar information that you read off on Safe at Home.
Okay, so the picture's not optional then.
I've never had anyone say that we couldn't, but no, that's the purpose. Because originally this was for people with just cognitive impairments, and so we wanted to be able to identify them. We did open it up last fall to any at-risk person. So a picture is important in identifying them, whether it's a child, an elderly person. If they're passed out and you're not sure who they are, and you know someone says, "Well, I think this is their name," and if they look it up in Spillman, they'll have a picture to compare it to. So it is very important.
Okay. How many people, do you know how many people you have signed up for these programs?
Yes, not nearly enough. For Safe at Home, we have around 262, and this is for all of Allen County.
Oh my.
For SafeNet, it's usually around 63. We do have a person that will they try to do so many a month where they double check to see if someone's either moved into an assisted living, passed away, or if to make sure their situation has not changed. So some of those fall off, and then of course we might add new on. But yeah, I mean, for these being free programs that can definitely be utilized. I know when this was just open for people with cognitive impairments, so many people would say, well, my husband's never wandered. I don't think we have to worry about that. And, it only takes one time.
Yeah, that's true. If you were a boomer child, like I am, and you had a parent that was reluctant to sign up for some of these things, because I can tell you, because she's not in Indiana, that my mother would be reluctant to sign up for some of these things. How do you convince them?
Say, guess what? We're all going to sign up, and you sign up with them.
Oh. What if they still drag their feet?
Well, then that is an issue. That can be an issue. But, you just have to explain that it's for anybody. That's one reason why we changed the wording to say, this is not someone with a problem, because these aren't problems. It can just be, and everybody has an event that happens to them. But when you're sometimes a senior, your family may not live close. It just is not always as easy to recover or to get the help that you need without having certain things in place.
That's true. I had a very good friend years ago who was in our church, and she was in her 90s, I think. And she was always telling me that old age is not for sissies.
Oh, I say that all the time. That's funny.
And she was right. And the sad thing is that she fell in her apartment one day and ended up in the hospital in a nursing home and passed away. But she was actually pretty good about keeping in touch, and she always called her son every day, and if she didn't call, he called her. And
actually, hip fracture, I believe, is the number one cause of death for seniors.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're right.
So the quicker you can get help, the quicker you'll be able to recover.
And as a klutz, I can tell you that it's real easy to fall, and walking down a sidewalk, you can trip on just a little bit of uneven cement, and you're flat on your face. So don't think it can't happen to you, because it can. And it has happened to me a couple of times. Okay, so we've talked about SafeNet. We have talked about Safe Home. Now, one of the more interesting things, and I have to admit that I think I have two of these at home in a file basket somewhere, with the idea that I'm going to fill these out. Yeah. And the best laid plans. Anyway, it's called the File of Life. And what it is a kind of a red plastic folder that says File of Life on it, that goes on your refrigerator because it's magnetized. And then it's got a little sticker in it that also says File of Life. Does this go on the front door?
Well, we don't really recommend it if you live in the community. Now, if you live in an apartment complex, yes. The difference is criminals could possibly know that File of Life's going to have some personal information about you.
Okay.
So if you live in the community, that they may come in there to identity theft is crazy right now. But if you live in a secure elderly apartment complex, then yes, it would be a good idea to put that on the door. That way, the ambulance will know to look on your refrigerator.
Okay. Good to know. And I will tell you that having interacted with some ambulance drivers over the last few years, those people really know their stuff.
They do. And they do know to look for these.
Unbelievable. So, and these are what they have you put in the information that goes inside the little red folder is are things that people need to know also, or that you need to be aware of, that you need to make somebody else aware of. And to have this on your refrigerator if something happens when the EMTs come in is most helpful to them. One of those is emergency contacts. And I really have to wonder, because my husband and I have gone through this. Our son lives in Brooklyn, New York. Our closest living relative is in Lansing, Michigan. They are both on our emergency contact information, as is our attorney. But if you don't have family close in the area, can an emergency contact be somebody other than a family member?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so for example, if our next door neighbors were our emergency contacts, then it would be their responsibility to contact a family member if we went to the hospital or something?
Yes, I would guess as long as you have set that up with them, yes.
Okay, so if say, for example, God forbid, our house caught on fire, and we both ended up in the hospital with smoke inhalation. Can the hospital, they can do emergency kinds of things to help you survive.
Right.
But if it's going to take like surgery or something like that, do they have to have the permission of an emergency contact in order to provide extra medical care? Has that changed any?
Yes, actually, as of July 1st, there is a hierarchy now on who can make decisions, but I think that's more on life support. I don't know if it's really surgery. I do believe it's whether or not to be kept on, a vent, that type of thing.
Okay.
And there is a hierarchy, yes.
Okay. And I will tell you, having worked on our wills over the last couple of years, that's a really interesting conversation to have with your spouse. The hospital in Kearney, Nebraska, has a booklet called The 5 Wishes, and it's a Catholic hospital, so I assume it's a booklet that the Catholic Hospitals Network has. And it asks you to fill this. You have to fill it in whenever you're going to have surgery. So when I had my gallbladder out, I had to go through and fill the whole book in. And one of the questions is basically, when do you want them to pull the plug? And that's a real interesting conversation to have.
It is. And, I'm actually a certified advanced care facilitator. And going through that training, I do know a lot of people do not fully understand CPR and how that comes into play. So if you do not have it written and readily accessible, the first responders and the hospital is going to treat you as though you are full code.
And what does that mean?
That means that they will put you on a vent.
Okay.
Until they find out otherwise that's your wishes. So when the question becomes, if someone finds you and you are not breathing and your heart is not beating, do you want them to perform CPR? So a lot of people think that when someone asks you that question, do you want CPR, that maybe you're just laying there passed out, and that, of course they're going to take you to the hospital. But no, when someone asks you that question, they mean that if someone finds you and your heart is not beating and you are not breathing, what do you want them to do? And given that situation, depending on what your ailments are, what your age is, people could have a lot of different answers. And it may not be to do everything possible until you get to the hospital and have full code.
Okay. Another cheery topic.
Oh, yes.
But something, truly, it is something you need to talk about.
This is an interesting statistic. 17% of people that have CPR actually survive from it. And that statistic is if you're in a hospital.
Oh, wow.
But yet, having CPR can break your ribs.
Yeah.
Can injure you, especially if you are elderly.
Yeah, and that's true. As you age, your bones get more brittle. And I know when I was certified in CPR a long time ago, it can be kind of brutal.
Oh, it is brutal, yes.
Life-saving, but a little bit brutal. So back to the emergency contacts. This will ask you for 2. Want to know their name, address, phone number, work phone number, and the relationship to you. Okay. Then it asks you for medical data and when that was last updated. So they're assuming that you go to the doctor.
Yes.
Which I know some people avoid like the plague.
Exactly.
But, if you need a good doctor, they're nice to have on your side.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know your blood type. And I will tell you, that's I got my blood type card, I think, when I was pregnant, but I don't remember for sure because it's been a long time ago. But I carry that with me all the time because I'm an A positive.
So am I.
Oh, there you go. So, yeah, it's good to know your blood type and to have it someplace on you so that if they need to give you blood, especially if you have a rare type of blood,
right,
like what B negative or something, they want to know the name of your doctor, phone number, and the preferred hospital, which I thought was really interesting because if it's an emergency, don't they take you to the closest hospital?
Well, you would think, but a lot of EMSs aren't actual life and death emergencies, though.
Oh, okay.
And
That's
true. The insurance side of me is going to say, because if they have an HMO plan and they go to a hospital that's not covered, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. They might have a lot of out-of-pocket, so.
Okay, so there's something to think about when you're talking about health care with your congressman.
The other thing with this, too, is it's very important to use pencil on this part of it, because those things change.
That was going to be my next question, because I almost started filling this out this afternoon with my pen. And you really should use a pencil because life changes.
Actually, I was going over these with the residents that I work with, and one of them mentioned that, and I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about it. So, yes, very important.
And how often should you go back and read this and update it?
At least once a year, I would say.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And we did streamline this. When we reprinted these last fall, about a year ago, we went through with the ambulance company and, tried to only put what we need in order to help you.
Special conditions and remarks, whatever. They want to know the medication that you take, the dosage, and the frequency. And I would say that's probably a fairly critical thing because if you're on some pretty heavy-duty medication, to go without it sometimes can be life-threatening. So that's...
And I would even encourage you to write, if there's room, or maybe a separate piece of paper, even supplements. Many people are into holistic medicine and supplements, but those still can have interaction with other medications. So,
and that's true. I think this is really interesting because we used to live in Broken Bow, Nebraska, population 3,700 on the edge of the Nebraska Sandhills. Beautiful place to live, and has a great hospital, which was funded by a family in the community. It's named after this doctor's mother. And one of the things that we worked on, because I did public relations for them, the town is about 100 miles from 3 different large retail areas along I-80. And people would go to doctors in those towns because of specialists. Or they would go to Omaha or Lincoln. And the Sandhills of Nebraska are right smack dab in the middle of the state. Well, then they would have a heart attack. And there wasn't a doctor in the community who had a file on them.
Oh.
And we spent about a year educating the public to the fact that even if you only go to the doctor once a year so that they have a file that says what medication you take, you need to do that. And I would guess that's probably a pretty critical thing, is that somebody needs to know what you're doing with your health, particularly if you see several doctors. Yeah, so...
and typically that's going to be your primary care. All your specialists are supposed to send everything back to them so that your one big list of medicines should be with them.
Yeah. So once again, there's another good reason to see the doctor at least once a year, preferably twice, but at least once a year. It asks for your funeral home preference, which is on some levels a little creepy, but I get it. And your religion. Because some people want to have their pastor called, and a pastor can no longer just walk into the hospital and say, I want to see who's in here, see if any of my members of my congregation are here in the hospital. They don't do that anymore because they can't. And it's HIPAA law, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So don't assume that your pastor knows that something has happened to you because he or she does not. Do you have an EMS no CPR directive or post form? They ask you that. Where is it located? Now, here's the question. Should you put it with this thing on the refrigerator, or?
You can. Now, the post form in particular, It actually is bright red. This is probably a whole nother conversation, but not red, pink, bright pink. And those, I tell my residents to put on the back of their door. The EMS is also trained to look for those, and you normally leave it open so that they can read it easily. But either way, I would say the refrigerator or the back of their door.
Okay. And then it asks about different medical conditions, Alzheimer's, asthma. Are you an amputee, renal failure, respiratory failure, cancer, cardiac, CVA, stroke, diabetes, dialysis, emphysema, HIV, AIDS, hypertension, psychiatric illnesses, seizure disorders, substance abuse, tracheostomy, and tuberculosis. Tuberculosis.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a problem for EMS providers?
From my understanding, it can still be a problem for anybody. I know, if you go into a nursing home, you still have to have a TB check, a chest x-ray.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Okay, good.
And if it's over 6 months old, you have to have a new one. So some people that maybe leave the hospital to go to rehab for a little bit, if another year or two goes down the road and they go to the hospital and have to do that again, they'll have to have another one.
Okay. Also asked you about allergies to insects, latex, penicillin. That's a big one in our family. Sulfa and other allergies. For example, I'm allergic to walnuts, so I want to put that in, kind of thing. And then it asks about your medical insurance, which
can change,
and that makes sense that they would ask about medical insurance. So not only is this a good thing to do and have for your own benefit, but it also kind of forces you to think about what you want to happen to you.
Mm-hmm. And can I put a little plug on how we get these printed?
You
Okay.
betcha.
So last year was the first year in I think 3 years that we were able to print more of these. They are not cheap. And luckily, TRAW paid for that. It was $5,300 and we ordered 10,000. So this year we would like to do that again. TRAW has offered to assist with that. We are looking for other people as well to come forward that would like to donate their money to have such a good cause. I mean, we went through those, I think, in like 4 months. We were gone with 10,000 of them.
Wow.
And of course, we will put your logo on there as well to let everybody know that you are a sponsor, but we're always looking for people to assist with getting these printed up.
So if somebody wanted to donate to this project, did they call you or?
They would call 745-1200.
745-1200, the phone number of the day.
For aging and in-home.
Aging and in-home services.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you distribute these? I think I got mine at church.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you call Aging and In-Home, they have a resource center, and boy, they just are a wealth of information with what they will give out, but they can mail those to you. Everybody that signs up for our programs get one. And anybody, really. We took stacks of 20 to different places. Parkview, Lutheran, TRAW actually had them at their office as well. So any place you can think of, if you call and say, hey, I would like a stack of those, we will bring them to you.
Okay. So remember that, and it's 745
1200.
1200. Okay. We have about 15 minutes or so left,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this is just so interesting. The idea that people need to have, I hate to say their life planned, but to really be aware of aging
Mm-hmm.
and what comes with aging. And for those of us who are boomers, the last time I got down on the floor, I didn't think I was going to be able to get up. It was a real shock to the system. And I'm still kind of stuck on this question of, and also from a personal level, is it defeatist to plan this way, or to think about the fact that you're going to die? Is it practical?
I think it's very practical. And, a lot of people that think, well, whatever happens is going to happen, but not really. If you're someone that wants to live and wants to be vital, then you need to prepare, because having these things in place are going to get you help as soon as possible. All of these things, whether it's advanced directives, whether it's things to keep safe in the community, the quicker they can treat you for anything, the quicker you're going to recover. So even with the hip fractures that we mentioned, if you're laying there for hours before someone finds you, then your chances of recovering quickly are not very good as compared to if someone finds you right away.
And that's true. That's true. So it also speaks to the need to not isolate yourself.
Correct. And even your kids. I mean, if your goal is just to worry about healing, having these things in place will do that. If you have to worry about, oh my gosh, where is that? Where is it located? I don't know where to tell my son to go look for this. Having things planned out makes everything get better quicker.
So in our house, we have a fire safe that has things in it because having been the daughter of a volunteer fireman, fire is, I'm a little conscious of that. And we try to put all of this together in one spot as best as possible. But when you don't have family living in the area, I mean, I have told our son where our stuff is, but I doubt seriously as a young single man he has a clue and remembers all of this. What do you do when you don't have family in an area?
I sure wish that I could remember the name of this, but there actually is some online programs that you can go on and fill that out. You can research and see if you had to go to a rehab, where would you go? What is your hospital of preference? Who are your contacts? And then you can give your power of attorneys or your kids in other states. They would all have access to this account as well.
Oh, okay.
And I will get you that information.
Okay, that's great. I will post that to our Facebook page for the League of Women Voters. That's a great idea because I would suspicion that the number of people who live in the same town or city as their parents isn't nearly what it used to be.
Correct.
Especially when it comes to people who live in cities. Yeah. So, okay. To talk a little bit about the League of Women Voters, and before we do that, do you have anything else that you'd like to talk about?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Tell me a little bit. What prompted you to get into working with the elderly?
Well, my husband was an insurance agent, and so was my stepdad, and they both said, you should do that. And they worked in senior health care. So for 10 years, I sold long-term care insurance, which I'm a big believer of. With that also came, of course, Medicare supplements, final expense policies, and that sort of thing. So, and it's kind of funny. I really think it boils down to when I was younger, my dad was a member of both the VFW and the Legion. So I feel like I fit in. That's where I grew up. That's where I've always hung out. That's where my graduation party was. So I don't know. I just love this group of people. I don't really view them as elderly. They're just people that are at a different stage than me, and I have the answer to some of their questions. So I think that's how I got involved in that. And then from there, it just sort of trickled down. I worked in the home health care. Now I still work with elderly, helping them with their entitlements and things of that nature. But it's a big need. The next thing that I think we're going to start seeing in this community is what's called care navigators. Someone that because family live in different states, you need someone that's going to help you from the hospital to the rehab back home until you're able to get well again. It can be very overwhelming. And even for people in their 40s or 50s, if you've really been pretty healthy and have never had a significant health scare, the first time you end up in the hospital and the doctor's saying, well, you really can't go home. I don't think you'd be safe. And you're like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? I have no clue about any of this stuff. And unfortunately, the hospital social workers are not allowed to give you any type of recommendation.
Really?
Nope, they sure cannot. They can give you a list and say you can choose from these rehabs or this home health care, and they cannot. So who do you turn to? So I know in some of the more larger cities, care navigating is becoming bigger, and I think you'll start seeing that in this area as well.
Interesting. I was visiting with someone the other night that I had not seen in a while, and she, since the last time I saw her, has had a stroke and recovered from it. And when she was in the hospital, she was told that she probably would not ever walk again and wouldn't be able to go home. I just hit the microphone. And her response to that was, you watch me, I'm going to do it. And she did it. But she's a single woman. She's retirement age. That's scary.
It is scary. And especially with Fort Wayne, for whatever reason, has a big population of people that have Medicare Advantage plans. So when you are age 65 or older and have these plans, it can make it a little more challenging too, because they are PPOs and HMOs, and you have to make sure you're in network and all of this type of thing. So it can be difficult.
So it's good to know your insurance agents and to do a little study. Okay. and as you said, to have nursing home insurance if you can afford it.
Yes.
That was one thing our financial planner talked us into, and I'm glad he
Oh.
did now. Yeah.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He is.
And he said, you need to do this. And so we did.
A lot of people, when they would, after I would talk with them and they would go speak to their financial planners, they just thought for sure they could invest enough, to be able to cover that cost, and it's not possible.
Well, we don't have that much to invest, so, Okay, talking a little bit about the League of Women Voters. We are an organization that was formed in 1920. Women got the right to vote less than 100 years ago in this nation, which surprises many when I tell them that, but it's true. And what we try to do is educate voters on issues, to put before you different news stories on our Facebook page. I happen to be a news junkie because I used to be a reporter. And so I read a lot of news sources, and to put things out there that the average person isn't going to run across, unless you're a news junkie too. We have been working quite a bit this year on voter registration, trying to get people registered to vote, and also to educate people about the need to use absentee ballots. Mm-hmm. There is nothing wrong with using an absentee ballot, and I did not know until we started doing this education that once you turn 65 in the state of Indiana, you can get an absentee ballot.
Yep, you don't have to have a reason of why you can't make it to the poll.
Right, mm-hmm. And having worked at party headquarters at the 2016 election, I was amazed at how many people I called who said, "Oh, I just don't feel up to it today. I have a headache, I have a cold, I'm not feeling well." And these are people whose health, because of their age, I hate to say that, but because of their age, varies so much, mm-hmm. who could have gotten an absentee ballot and voted. And consequently, they didn't get to vote. And that's not good. That's not good, because we all need to have our voices heard. Mm-hmm. So we are working on absentee ballots. We're working on voter registration. Once the legislature goes back into session, we will probably be working on redistricting, which is a big thing going on in the state of Indiana, in that the party that is in power in the legislature gets to draw the lines of the districts that our elected officials represent. And so they draw them the way that's beneficial for them, which, if you were a member of that party, makes sense. But we've got some really weird districts in this state by the way they're drawn. And there's a really good example of one in Allen County that goes over into Huntington County. And so their Common Cause is a partner with the League of Women Voters statewide on working on redistricting issues. So do keep an eye on our Facebook page, because we will put information out about that. We will likely have a workshop or a session this fall sometime. I think we're looking at October now on redistricting. Julia Vaughn from Common Cause will be coming up and talking to us more about that. We also have an e-newsletter, which is somewhat in a state of flux right now because I've been doing it and my time is a little rushed these days. It does not come out on a regular basis, but when there's something I need to get out to the entire membership, the e-newsletter goes out. You do not have to be a member, however, to get that newsletter. And if you go to our website, lwvfw.org, you can go on the homepage down on the left-hand side in the corner, and there's a link, and you can shoot me an email and say, I want to sign up for the newsletter, and be sure you give me your correct email address. Or if you see us at an event around town, we usually have a sign-up sheet that you can give us your email address there too. So we are always looking for new members, and you don't have to be a woman to be a member of the League of Women Voters. In the 1970s, I think it was, at some point, or 80s, the organization voted to let men in, and we do have male members of our local league. So it's a good organization if you're interested in politics, but you're not a person who is a vehement Republican or a vehement Democrat. If you're somewhere in the middle, this is an organization for you, because we do work on voter education, topics such as we talked about today, just to make the public a little bit smarter, we hope. Okay, we have just a couple of minutes left. Anything else that you want to add?
Yes, I just want to remind everyone what the exact date of the upcoming medication disposal, which
thank
is
you.
Friday, September 28th from 9 until 1 at 15 area Walgreens locations.
Okay, and I would assume that there will be more publicity about this.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And that Walgreens will have publicity about it also.
Yes.
So is this going to be statewide or just Fort Wayne, Allen
No,
County?
just Allen County.
Just Allen County.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I would like to tell you, just to kind of tell you this, when we started this, I think it was about 15 years ago, the first weight was only about 400 pounds, and this last one was about 6,000 pounds of medication.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Oh, my gosh. Is that because more people discarded medication the proper way, or because we're taking more medication these days? Or maybe both.
Yes. I think it's both. I think it's education and promotion as far as this program, but definitely because people are taking more medications as well.
Okay, and repeat the date and
Sure.
the location.
Friday, September 28th from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. at 15 area Walgreens locations in Fort Wayne.
Okay, I would like to thank Robin Picongi for being our guest today. I'm Nancy McCammon Hansen, the convener of the Fort Wayne Area League of Women Voters, and a big shout out to the staff of WELT at the Allen County Public Library. These people are awesome. So thank you for listening, and we will see you again on the radio.